now coming to the topic of rural and high unemployment, right? My favorite topic, not. But Neeraj, what are your thoughts on retrogression? What do the numbers look like, rural versus HUA? And I mean, let's start with the basics. What does retrogression mean?
Yeah, so retrogression is basically a visa backlog. The entire immigration system is built on demand and supply. There's a limited number of visas available, and when demand exceeds that supply, then you start having these backlogs, otherwise known as priority date cutoffs, otherwise known as retrogression. We see it in all the other categories, EB-1, 2, 3, and EB-5 is no different, right? We see it for India and China under the unreserved. Under the reserved, it's obviously current right now, which allows you to apply for the APEAD. But my number one my advice to a lot of clients who come to me and they ask me this question, when is this going to retrogress? I'm like, if I knew that, I'd go buy a lottery ticket and probably quit my job. It's like no one knows exactly when retrogression is going to hit. And then on top of that, no one truly knows how long it's going to hit. I think when this program or when the RIA first came online and the first applicants went in, I think July or August 2022, there were only high unemployment projects. So everyone flocked to high unemployment. Then you started seeing rural projects, you started seeing quicker processing times, everyone flocked to rural. And so we all thought high unemployment retrogress first. Now people are saying potentially rural retrogresses first. All that's to say is no one truly knows. And I think you sort of make peace with that unknown and understand that, if you've made a decision to do this and you have the financial means to do it, you definitely do it sooner rather than later. You lock in that APEAD, and I don't want people to underestimate the value of that APEAD because 9 out of 10 times it's good for 5 years. You get a combo card, and that gives you that stability to wait out any sort of potential retrogression.
Yeah, and not only the EAD AP, but ongoing legal status in the United States
Yeah.
for the duration of the process. Let's recognize reality here. The news that came out this around last Friday about the $100,000 H-1B fee that then the administration spent the next 3, 4 days walking back and saying, no, it's really something different. And then this, the H-1B cap, proposed H-1B cap process. Make no mistake, this administration is coming after the H-1B program, no doubt. They are trying to figure out ways to essentially kill it. No mistake. And one of the things we've learned from the first time these guys were around, let's take the travel ban. It took them 3 attempts before they figured out a workable, viable, legal travel ban. They're going to do the same thing with the H-1B program. They're going to figure out, they're going to try this, they're going to try that. It's going to be a trial and error approach. Courts are not coming back. Eventually, they'll figure out a way to fundamentally kill H-1B. That's their goal. They've been clear about it. And also, if there's any F1 students on the call, guess what? OPT's next. Actually, is probably going to come first. So again, if you have the means to do this, the data points are clear. Reality is staring you in the face. If you want to be here in 5 years, I mean, as valuable as you are to your companies are not going to be paying $100,000 for you to stay here. They're just simply not. H-1B, and given the Reform and Integrity Act, given how USCIS is currently handling EB-5s, given currently no retrogression, the time is now to do EB-5 because it may not be here forever. And it's simple as that.
And think about it this way, right? I think one of the bigger driver of demand happened maybe a year or so ago when we saw all the tech layoffs.
Right.
And everyone knows if you're on H-1B and you're laid off, you got 60 days to either find a new job, a new H-1B sponsor, or you got to leave. And that's when a lot of people really started looking into EB-5 because, like Brandon says, the legal status, filing that 485 at least allows you to stay in the U.S. If you've got a family, you can kind of continue as you would until you get that APAD. You can start traveling and working again, but it allows you to stay in the country, which is, you can't underestimate that.
A couple of thoughts about retrogression in general with EB-5, right? Back in 2018, there was this noise about there will be 6-7 year retrogression for Indian-born investors. No one has ever been able to predict it for one big reason. EB-5, unlike every other employment-based category, does not have a standard processing time. Retrogression is not based on the number of applications filed, but the number of applications approved. Since we do not have certainty in terms of timeline for approval, and there is no premium processing, so that, again, as a result of that, and not to mention it is also not first in, first out, there are so many moving parts that it's impossible to predict when retrogression will hit. And when it hits, it is impossible to predict how long it'll be for, because we don't know how many applications have been approved. So it's the sad truth of this industry that you really cannot plan around it. All you know is there is uncertainty around non-immigrant visas, and the one visa that gives you certainty, you don't know how long it'll take to get it.
Yeah, that's so very, very true. And in fact, I think just to weave that into the selection of the projects, or at least some kind of guidance, which I, as an attorney, do not give because I do not have an SEC or a FINRA license, at least. But I do tell them to think about the quality of the project. And, we've talked about the quality of the project. We've kind of referred to the return of capital. But I think it's important not just to look at the job creation, but also the return of capital possibilities. And that's a whole different conversation. And that may come into play when also, whether you're in the US or outside the US, when you're selecting the project and you're trying to decide whether you want to go in for a rural project or you want to go in for a high unemployment project.
Yeah,
I also think,
I have this formula because there's individuals and groups out there that publish these blogs or these webinars and say, oh, it's going to be 5-year wait, 7-year wait, 12-year wait. To Abhi's point, no one knows.